Hello everyone, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have my December wrap-up. So like the last couple months, I have been in a reading slump, and I know I say this every single time I do a wrap-up, that kind of thing, and I was in a reading slump. However, my numbers might not seem like it because I read a whole lot of manga in December. I did participate in the 25 days of manga, and so I actually have, I think, 27 volumes of manga to show you guys today, along with a few other things that I did actually read as well. So while the number is going to seem really high, manga is one of those things that I am able to read during a reading slump because it doesn't seem to use as much brain power. Same thing with like comics and graphic novels. So the fact that I was still not very motivated to actually sit down and read a novel does not mean I didn't read manga, because I definitely did. So we're gonna jump right on into the stats first. And so, like I said, 27 volumes of manga, but I did read a total of 32 books in the month of December for a total of 6,741 pages. The format of the books I did read are 1 ARC, 1 ebook, and 30 physical books. And then for the age ranges, I read 1 middle grade, 24 young adult books, and 7 adult books. And then going into the star ratings, I did have 2 3-stars, 10 4-stars, and 20 5-star reads. So like I said before, it definitely seems like I read a lot of things, but besides the 27 manga I read, I did read 2 comic bind-ups, 1 short story, and then 2 actual novels. So we're going to jump into the ratings. Like I've been doing all year, we are going to start at my lowest rated and work our way to the highest rated and my favorite book of the month. I will say, because of the manga, some of them are going to be a little bit out of order because I'm going to talk about a whole series at once, or that kind of thing, where I might have rated different books in the series, not the exact same rating. So my first 3-star, and the book that actually was the E-arc of the month, is going to be Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You by Haruka Mitsui. So this, like I said, was an E-arc. I think this one actually came out around November, but it showed up on NetGalley, I think at the beginning of December, and so I did read it during the 25 days of manga, and I gave it 3 stars. This is a cute sort of like high school falling in love romance, well they won't they sort of thing, between a girl and a boy who've been best friends since like they were kids. He is really into her, and she sort of has a crush on somebody else, and so this was one of those ones where I was just sort of wishing for more character development and more personality for a lot of the characters, because he's not the only person that's been a best friend with her since they were young. It's actually her and 4 boys, but the other 3 boys don't really have much of a personality. They're there when they hang out, but they don't really get to talk much either. I was just sort of like, why was this part of the story if we didn't actually get to know them as characters? Like, it was just a little bit weird for me. And then the only other thing that actually made this reading experience a little bit uncomfortable is the fact that these are teens in high school, and the main guy, I don't remember any of their names, but the main guy is very into her, and he tells her, I think quite early, that he likes her or something like that, and she's not really into it, but he keeps coming on to her. And when I say that, I mean that they find themselves in situations that appear very adult on page. Like, they're just sort of things that I'm like, these are kids that I think are like juniors in high school. I'm 31 reading about this, and like the way that they end up in these sort of like precarious positions just made me uncomfortable. So while I do think this could have the potential to be cute, because it is only the first volume of the series, I don't think I'm going to continue just because of those things that it made me feel. Then my next 3-star is Horimiya Volume 9 by Hiro and Daisuke Hagiwara. So I actually read the first 9 volumes of Horimiya. This is something that I have read the first 6 volumes of before, and this is the one that I gave the lowest score. But because I said we're going to mix things up a little bit, I am going to talk about Horimiya all at once right now. So this month I did read Volume 1, Volume 2, Volume 3, Volume 4, Volume 5, Volume 6, Volume 7, Volume 8, and Volume 9. So Horimiya, in case you are not aware, is a shonen manga series about friendship and romance in high school. This is actually one that, when I first originally read it, I thought was shoujo, because back then I was not aware that the main age grouping of manga is based on the magazine it was published in Japan. So this is shonen, and I do think it actually is a little bit more apparent the target audience for this the further into the books that you get. Overall, I gave this series mostly 4-star ratings. I gave volumes 1 through 3 4 stars. I gave volumes 4 through 5 5 stars. I gave volumes 6 through 8 4 stars. And then, like I said, I gave volume 9 3 stars. And while this is cute, I don't think I'm going to be continuing on in this series. I actually own the first 14 volumes of Horimiya. I read through volume 6 a few years ago and decided to pick it up this year. I was going to read the entire thing for the 25 days of manga. Hi, baby.
Mommy.
Hi. Mommy's filming. I was going to actually read volumes 1 through 14 during the 25 days of manga, but after volume 9, I did decide that I don't think this series is necessarily for me. So this whole series follows Hori and Miyamura. They're on the cover of volume 1 as well as volume 9, so this works out perfectly. And basically, it's about them becoming friends and then eventually having some romance because of the fact that they are different sort of personalities in school versus outside of school. In school, she's like very, very popular. I think she gets like straight A's, this kind of stuff. Like, everybody loves her. But outside of school, she is like the sole caretaker for her brother because her mom works and her dad is sort of a bum. Very, very hardworking. And then he in school is very antisocial, standoffish, loner kind of stuff. He doesn't really have any friends. And then outside of school, she finds out that he has piercings and a tattoo and is sort of like the cool guy. And so they find these things out about each other that nobody else knows, and that is how they bond. It starts off very, very cute. My biggest issue with these, I think, ended up happening around volume 5 or 6, probably actually volume 6, because I gave volume 5 like a full 5 stars. But there is an element of their relationship where Hori likes the idea of sort of being abused. I don't want to say that they're actually abused, because in her life it doesn't appear that she is, but she really, really likes Miyamura to like push her around and yell at her and shove her up against the wall and this kind of stuff, and like she gets off on it a bit, and it made me very, very uncomfortable, especially since once that starts happening, it shows up in basically every single volume, which is why even though cutesy stuff was happening, I wasn't giving the later volumes that I read higher stars, because it's very much a like, why is this in there? I don't want to say it's like, it's not actually abuse, but it sort of is a little bit of a glorification of it, because she really, really wants to be pushed around and like hit on, and like it's just a little bit too much. And then the reason that volume 9 is a 3 star, so an even lower rating, because again, there are really, really good elements in here that I like, but there's a part in here where she questions if Miyamura might also like guys. And the way it is played off in here is very homophobic, and I just really did not enjoy that commentary. It wasn't a huge thing, but there was a whole scene about it, and all the characters were like, ew, gross, no, there's no way, and it was just not good. And so with those things coupled in here, even though I do think some of this is really, really good, I don't think I'm going to continue on with this series at all, because I was so uncomfortable by volume 9. Moving into some of the 4-star ratings, the first one I have here is Deserter by Junji Ito. This is his most recent English short story collection. It just came out at the end of December. I think I actually talked about it slightly in my book haul, because I had just bought it but hadn't read it yet. I read it that day, like literally picked it up that day, and I gave it 4 stars. This is actually a collection of some of his oldest short stories that have just never been published in English, and so you can definitely tell that a little bit with some of these stories. The art style is not up to snuff on some of them, and some of them just fall a little bit flat in the fact that they end a little bit too abruptly. Like, I was hoping for a little bit more. They weren't necessarily as scary. Some of them are still really, really good, which is why this is a 4-star collection. I know some of his more recent, again, I don't know exactly when they were written in Japanese, but some of the more recent published in English stories that aren't short stories, but like a whole book, like Remina and Censor, I gave 3 stars because they just, again, weren't quite up to what I was expecting with him. But this is actually overall pretty good. It's just not exactly new. I'm like, these are new short stories. They are for us, but they're not. They're some of his older work. I do want to say Deserter, the title story, I did really, really like that one. I think the other one that stuck with me was A Father's Love. That's one of the longer short stories in this collection. And so there are some really, really good ones in here. But there are, because it is a horror short story collection, some things in here for trigger warnings and content warnings people should be aware of. There is lots of blood and death and murder. There's also abuse, like parental abuse, bullying, infanticide, that kind of thing. And so some of the stories that I did not like as much did lean into that realm of like the parental abuse type of stuff, because those made me more uncomfortable than creeped out. I usually expect his stories to be creepy at the very least, and so some of them just felt a little bit flat, but then there were others that were really, really good. The next 4-star read was A School Frozen in Time, art by Naoshi Arakawa, story by Mizuki Tsujimura, and then I also read volume 4. I'm going to talk about these together, although volume 4 was 5 stars. So this is the 4-star one. One thing I will say about this series is that I feel like every single volume, maybe I should just hold both, got better and better with each subsequent volume. The first volume of this I gave, I think, 3.5 stars. Volume 2 was like a low 4, but getting better. Volume 3 was a pretty high 4-star, and Volume 4 was a full 5 stars. And this is the entirety of the series. It is complete. This is a series, just be aware, that definitely 100% has content and trigger warnings for suicide. The main point of this entire story, the main plot point, what everything revolves around, is a suicide of a student at a high school. And so if you cannot handle that, it is in every bit of this story. There are also like mysteries and horror and blood and gore. Like, this is a very dark series, but even when we're not talking about suicide directly, it will come up within a few pages or so because of the fact that this is what the story is about. It is about a group of students who go to school one day and find out that they are the only ones in school. Not only that, they're trapped in school, the doors are locked, the windows are locked, they can't get out, and they realize that they have forgotten who killed themselves at a school festival, and they think whoever did that to themselves is now keeping them trapped there at school. So it is sort of paranormal. It definitely, like I said, has the blood and gore elements and the suicide elements. One thing I will say also that I really, really appreciate with these books is at the very front of the story, they have the content and trigger warnings and the suicide hotline stuff here. So I really do appreciate that they included that in there because, like I said, it is a huge part of the story. But one thing I should say as well is that I really do think these got better and better with each subsequent book. We get more character development, we get more backstory, we get how everybody's connected. That first book, while we did have the sort of mystery of what was going on, I want to say it was very expositional for the first half or so, maybe even more. And so while I was very curious about the story, I don't think the first book is in any way the best of these books because it's very, very slow to start. But like I said, with each subsequent book, it got better and better. And by volume 4, I was hooked. I needed to know what was going on. I think it wrapped up very beautifully as well. I just absolutely loved these. Then my next 4-star was the short story. I read A Trick-or-Treater Christmas by Brianna Morgan. This I actually did read Christmas morning. Before Presley woke up, I read it in bed. It was like a 35-page short story. I think it took me less than half an hour to read, and it was very well done. Because it is a short story, I didn't feel as connected with everything to give it a full 5 stars. I'm actually very curious about her other trick-or-treater stories because this is a short story, but I believe it is based on some sort of entity that she had in like her Trick-or-Treater collection, which is a collection of short stories that I have not read, but I definitely want to read now. And yeah, it's a Christmas-y horror story with this like paranormal entity that like you can summon, and he will make you play almost like games like Saw, like the movie Saw. So it is, again, very dark and twisted and bloody and gory. But yeah, I don't know. It was a very good short story that was horror set at Christmas. And then my final 4 stars is The Lights on Knockbridge Lane by Roan Parrish. This is technically book 3 in the Garnet Run series. I have not read the first 2, but after reading this, I would like to. And this is a male-male romance set at Christmas. It is very Hallmark-esque, and I just really loved it. We do actually have more representation in here as well than just the male-male romance. One of the characters' siblings uses they-them pronouns, and so I just loved how inclusive it was. Like, everybody in the town just seems perfectly fine with everybody there. And basically this follows a single father who is new in town and his reclusive neighbor. I really enjoyed this because, again, it gave me those like cutesy Hallmark movie type of vibes. I will also say, because it is a romance, it does follow the typical romance structure, and there is a 3rd act breakup. I feel like that is something that you can't get around in romance books like this, but it's one of my favorite 3rd act breakups that I have like ever read because it was so realistic. Like, when it was happening, I was like, yeah, you know what? I completely agree with this person. Do what you need to do. Like, it was just so well done that way. It was a little slow to start, which is why this is mostly a 4 stars, because the further I got into the book, the more I liked it. But I don't know if it was just the cutesy Hallmark romance aspect of it or whatever it was, but it definitely felt like the first like 1/3 of it or so took a little bit to get going, but then I was hooked. Okay, moving into the 5-star reads, we did talk about them a little bit because I had A School Frozen in Time Volume 4 as well as Horimiya Volumes 4 and 5, but my next ones were Saga Volume 5 and Volume 6 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This I actually reread because I have read up through Volume 6 before as part of the Saga read-along hosted by Ashley Bookish Realm on her channel. I have been going on there with her and some friends, Isabel from Happy for Now, Bree from Locked Partition, and Erica from The Broken Spine, to read these and then talk about them in a live show, a live discussion type of thing. I've absolutely been loving this because some of us have read these before and then some of us have never read them before, and we're just having a very good discussion about them. I absolutely love them. I think the last time I read these was like 4, 5, 6 years ago, something like that. I still really enjoy them, and I can't really get into these ones without spoiling other stuff. So in general, Saga is a sci-fi fantasy about a couple who are from opposite sides of a war, and they have a child together, and like their governments don't want people to know that this child exists because the parents are from the opposite sides of an interplanetary war. Like, yeah. It is so good. It is very mature, both in graphic nature of war and blood and death and murder and sex. So just be aware of that. There is a lot in here. It is very mature, but I feel like this is a series that most of BookTube knows. Even if you're not a comics graphic novel type of person, most people know this, and I love it. The next 5-star read I have here is Can't Stop Cursing You Volume 1 by Kensuke Koba. This is a book that I think came out earlier this year. I know it did because I was trying to get my hands on it, but it was on back order. The 2nd volume of this, I'm pretty sure, came out around November, but it is now on back order as well, just because of supply chain issues. We know these things are happening. But I finally got my hands on this, and it was so good. I've heard other booktubers and stuff call this basically L from Death Note if he had his own book, and it's very much that type of vibe. It is a little bit different because instead of having like a Death Note in here, we have a curse demon who then like people can make a contract with to do curse killings, that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit more, I don't want to say it's a little bit more paranormal because Death Note's still very paranormal as well, but it is also paranormal. We have the curse demons, and our main character here is a curse breaker, and in this first book he is trying to figure out who is doing the curse killings at a high school. I just really liked this one. It is dark as well, but it is a little bit funny, a little bit sarcastic. I don't know. It was really good. Then I have Boys Run the Riot Volume 3 by Keito Gaku. I absolutely love this series. I think volume 4 was supposed to come out like in December or something like that, but it has been moved to January, and hopefully that comes out this month because I need it. I love this series so much. I do think the books have been getting a little bit, not darker as we've gone in the series, but it's been a little bit harder of the topics because of the fact that our main character in this is a trans teen in high school who is still presenting as a female in school because they have not come out yet. They don't know how to tell people that, hey, I'm a guy, but they do end up befriending a new kid in their class who ends up wanting to start a fashion brand, and they're like, yeah, let's go start a fashion brand to sort of express ourselves. And yeah, like I said, the topics get a little bit harder as we go. We have talk about like outing of people in here, but we also in this book specifically get a little bit into more of like the nuance of identity and how messy it can be sometimes, because we do have a character who's not like strictly a boy or a girl. I don't think they've said specifically that they're gender fluid or non-binary or anything like that, but they're still trying to come to terms with their identity, and so I really like that we're getting those messy messages in here as well. This is also an own voices series for our author. I don't know how much the fashion part plays into it, but I believe the interview in book 1 does say that some of the events in here come from the events of his life when he was coming out. So yeah, I just absolutely love this one. It is a little bit heavy, but I think it is definitely needed. Then, more 5-star manga. I have Sweat and Soap Volume 3 and Volume 4 by Kentetsu Yamada. I absolutely love this series. I've definitely talked about this recently because I got these recently. I think I read Volume 2 semi-recently. I love this series so much. I need to continue with more because I know the last volume of this series is coming out in January sometime, so like I'm behind, but I love it. It is a weird concept. I know I've said this before as well, because we follow two characters who work at a like soap fragrance type of company. They make bath products, that kind of stuff. And our female main character is one of the accountants there, and our male main character is like a scent developer. And one day he smells her and just like absolutely loves the way she smells and likes to sniff her to get inspiration. And she has a perspiration problem, so she is very aware of the fact that she might not smell the prettiest or that she's sweating that day, that kind of thing. But they end up starting a romantic relationship. This is an adult romance, and it is just absolutely adorable. Like, I love the fact that they are adults. Like, she is in her late 20s, he is in his early 30s, and they sometimes have problems, adult problems in this book, but they talk through it. And I just love that this is a more mature sort of romance type of stuff. Like, I love how wholesome and heartwarming their relationship is. Like, I'm just rooting for them with every single book. Like, yeah, the concept's a little bit weird, but the romance is amazing. Okay, the last set of manga that I read in 2021 and in December and gave 5 stars is the last 10 volumes of The Promised Neverland by Kayu Shirai. So I read Volume 11, Volume 12, Volume 13, Volume 14, Volume 15, Volume 16, Volume 17, Volume 18, Volume 19, and Volume 20. This is a series that I have actually given every single book 5 out of 5 stars. I originally started this with the anime, which I do think is a good way to start because I love the way that they did this with like the actual music and everything as well. But this is a series that I know I've talked about multiple times on my channel. I can't tell you much about this series. It follows a group of orphans who live at an orphanage with their caretaker who is their mom, and it goes from there. Like, I literally cannot tell you anything else about this series except for that I absolutely love it, and that with each subsequent book in this series, like, you think you know where things are going, and you don't. They change it up, they give you more backstory, more information, all this kind of stuff the further you read into this series. I will say I cried at Volume 20. One, it was just a perfect ending. I loved the way that they did everything, but also, two, I'm pregnant and hormonal, so that could have played a part with it a little bit, but I love this series so much. Because I can't really tell you much about this, I will say Season 1 of the anime is amazing. It goes from volume 1 to volume 5-ish. Season 2 I'm probably never going to watch, because after finishing this series, I had heard previously that season 2 was bad. And so after finishing this, I wanted to look it up and just sort of see. And by looking at the summary of each episode, I can tell that they have cut out a ton of storyline. Maybe they thought it was secondary storyline, but in this series, like, I don't think it is. You definitely need everything going on because it gives you so much backstory and stuff. But season 2 took it from volume like 6 to volume 20. Like, that's a 15 volume one season, whereas the first one was 5 volumes. Season 1 is very faithful to the books. I don't think that's going to happen with season 2. Also, again, just by reading summaries on IMDb, like just the little like 2-sentence summary of what that episode is about and seeing the picture, I do also think that they changed the entire ending basically of this. And I don't think I want to watch that because of the fact that, like, this was perfect. I cried. It was amazing. So yeah, if you have not read this series yet, you definitely need to do that. If you're not entirely too sure about it, because I can't tell you much, try the anime, at least season 1, because season 1 is very faithful to the books, and I do think it was a good dive into the series because of like having the music and the motion on the screen. It was so well done. And then my final book of December, my favorite book of December, is Keeper of the Lost Cities Everblaze by Shannon Messenger. This is the 3rd book in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. This book. So I've been in a reading slump. I know we've said this. I did not want to put this down. This is a very chunky 600-page book. It is middle grade, so I do feel like it went by faster. I want to say this probably went by as fast as like a maybe like 400-something page book instead of a 600-page book, but it was so good. I was hooked. I did read the 2nd book in this series earlier this year, and I gave it like 4.5 stars because I didn't think that it lived up to the amazingness of book 1. This one did. This one was so good. I love that we're getting more into the worlds, and Sophie's getting a little bit older. I think she's 13 in this book, and her friends, we're getting more of actual like friendship moments and learning more about their lives. And this is getting into more of a conspiracy type of thing as well. Like, we were definitely getting into the nitty-gritty. It was very actiony as well. Like, I literally did not want to put this down. I think I read this in about 3 days or whatever. I finished it at the very end of December, and I definitely need to continue in this series again more because it is just such a good middle grade series. It took me forever to pick these up, but I absolutely loved this one. It was so good, and like I want more. I finished this and I just want more, and I don't own any more right now, so that's disappointing because I'm going on a book buying ban this year. So good. Okay, well that is it for this wrap up. Hopefully this wasn't super long, but I know I read a lot of manga and stuff this month, so I definitely had stuff to talk about. And if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Subscribe to this channel if you'd like to see more videos. I do have videos up Tuesdays and Thursdays, so I will see you then. Bye!